Let's give our full attention to our speaker tonight. This morning, he is a dear friend of a number of faculty members here and actually also students. He's from down the street over at St. Mary's Church. Let's give a round of applause to civil rights activist Deacon Miller.
Hey, what's up? It's a pleasure to be here. This day is a day that's important, and most of you, particularly the students, aren't aware of what was happening back when I was your age. But I'm going to tell you a story. In 1955, there was this young man who was 14 years old from Chicago, which is my hometown, and he ventured down to Mississippi during the summer to visit his great uncle. And while he was there, he went into a segregated store, because in Mississippi, everything was segregated. He walked into the store and something ensued. No one really knows what it was. But while he was in there, he suddenly ran out of the store. And the woman followed him to go to get a gun out of her pickup truck. She was white. He was black. He jumped into a car with his cousins and sped on. 3 days later, the husband of that woman, the man who owned the store, went and broke into and ordered a young man to come with him, along with his brother. They took him to an old tobacco shed and began to beat him and beat him. They tortured him by gouging out one of his eyes. Then they shot him in the head and threw him in the river. Some days later, his body, his mutilated, broken body was found. His name was Emmett Till. Emmett Till and I were schoolmates. He sat next to my brother in school. And I remember vividly the horror of the moment. It was that murder that spurred Rosa Parks to stand up and not be violated again, and kept her seat when ordered to get out for a white man. Soon thereafter, there was a young minister who came to the fore, who organized the Montgomery Improvement Association, and it began a boycott of the buses in Montgomery, Alabama. That woman, Rosa Parks, used that murder of Emmett Till as the beginning of the reason to begin what is now called the modern civil rights movement. That young man, the young minister, was Dr. Martin Luther King. And that moment was the beginning of the civil rights movement and the change that came to America. I am honored that I had the opportunity to participate in the civil rights movement. You know your history books that has those black and white pictures of young people being shot with water hoses and attacked by police dogs and beaten. I was one of those kids, and it was real. But you see, we didn't know what was going to happen. We were operating in an environment where everything was against us. But we persevered because, you see, we knew what was right. But did you know that there are only 5% of the American population participated in any meaningful way in the civil rights movement? 5%. But you know what that 5% did? That 5% changed this country. My question to you is this: are you one of those 5%? See, there's still a lot that needs to be done. There are, I am told, some 400 of you in here. Don't look like that many, so we'll just say 300. 300. 5% are 15. Are you one of the 15? Or are you one of the remaining of those who stand by and watch as things happen? You know, I'm often quoted as saying that if there was an 11th commandment, it would read, "Thou shalt not be a bystander." A bystander, watching as things happen. I have sworn in my life, I will never be a bystander. I'll never be quiet when I see injustice. But I need to tell you a story. Some 60 years, I'm 74. Yes, I know I look good for 74. But in 1957, my family moved to a new community. And we moved because Emmett Till's murders spurred our government so that in 1956, 1957, some of the arcane segregation laws that governed residential living fell. And so my family, you see, my parents went to college, but we grew up in this one-bedroom apartment in the south side of Chicago. But when they were able to move, we moved into this wonderful plush community, a middle-class community, but we were the only black people there. So it was a difficult time. But I remember going to school. And I remember that first day in 7th grade, I sat at my seat. I was 12 years old. And it was back in the olden days. And the seats had this wooden desk that you had to flip up. And there were inkwells and those kinds of things. And so I opened my desk, and there were my books, and I read my books. Second day came. I went to school, sat down, opened my books, and sat there quietly. Third day came. And I opened my desk, and there was a note in my desk. Note said, "Dear Art, I like you. Who do you like? Please check the box." And he had little girls' names on it. Well, it was signed Victoria Hawkins, and I didn't know who Victoria Hawkins was, so I threw it away. Next day, I came to school, opened up my desk. There was this note. "Dear Art, I like you. Who do you like? Please check the box." Signed Victoria Hawkins. And I threw it away. Next day I went to school. Opened my desk. And you know what was there? I know. Do you know what it said? "Dear Art, I like you." Oh, I like you too. "Who do you like?" Then what did it say? "Please check the box." And what did I do? I threw it away. Yes, you know what happened next day? I went to school, opened the desk. There was a note. You know what it said? "Dear Art, I like you. Who do you like? Please check the box." And what did I do? I threw it away. I wondered for a while who was this girl, Victoria Hawkins, and I realized who it was because she was looking at me, kind of like you looking at me right now. Oh, like you are too, so be quiet. And I said, that must be Victoria Hawkins. I kept getting notes, but there was something I noticed. Victoria's being teased. Every once in a while, someone that, while she was eating lunch alone, would walk up and knock her milk over. She would slowly clean it up, and they'd walk away laughing because they thought it was funny. At recess, back in those days, the boys would play recess on one side of the playground, and the girls would play recess on the other side of the playground. And Victoria sat in the middle playing little girl games by herself. Every once in a while, a little boy or a little girl would run by and kick her jacks or pickup sticks and run away and laugh because they thought it was funny. This was Chicago, and when wintertime came, it was brutal. And every once in a while, you'd see a snowball fly over and hit her or come close to her, and everyone would laugh because they thought it was funny. Victoria continued to send me notes through 7th and 8th grade. But by the time we got to 8th grade and went on to high school, she stopped sending me notes. And what had happened was, I am a nerd, and I had honors classes, and in Chicago the schools are quite large, and there were 500 people in my class. And there were 30 of us who had honors classes. I was one of those, and so was Victoria, because she was really a very brilliant young lady. But what happened was this, and it took me a while to notice it, but Victoria always sat near the front door. And when the bell would ring, she'd scurry out to try to get to the next class, from honors algebra to honors history to honors biology. And she did that because there were 2,000 kids in that school. And they were much bigger and much meaner. Frequently, you would see her in tears. I know and saw that some kids were throwing matches in her locker. I never ever teased nor bullied Victoria. Our freshman year came, our sophomore year, our junior, and when our senior year finally dawned, she didn't go to the senior prom. And when we graduated, I had received a small scholarship. And I sat in front, of our class with my little tassel, with my little gold tassel. And there was an empty seat next to me. They called my name, and then they called Victoria's. She wasn't there. She didn't even come to our high school graduation. That summer was the summer of 1963, before the I Have a Dream speech. And that summer, Dr. King had called for a protest against the horrid segregation and depravity that was happening in Chicago. And I went to that march, led by Dr. King. I was arrested for standing up what I felt was right. But it was about that time I realized this one thing. I not once stood up for Victoria Hawkins. My silence perpetuated her pain. I was as guilty as those who sat in silence and watched the ugliness and brutality and violence happen to that little girl. At that moment I said, I will never be quiet again. I tell that story for this one reason. I hope in my heart that if someone would have come to me like I'm coming to you right now, told me, Art, stand up. I hope in my heart I would have. But I want you to know this, because it in fact is true. If you stand up for what is right and it is unpopular, they ain't going to throw no parade for you. You understand what I'm saying? They are not going to throw a parade for you. If I would have stood up for Victoria Hawkins, they would have teased me. They would have been brutal and done to me the exact same thing they did to her. So damn what? That is the reward. Man, that's the honor, to suffer for what is right. But I didn't. I was a coward. I avoided what I should have done. I was more concerned about myself than what was right. In this school right now, in this place, amongst you, is happening here too. You all know who the bullies are. You know who laughs at others. You know who thinks they're better than everybody else? It cannot stop unless you make that decision. It's going to stop right now, right here. Other than that, it will continue. And the purpose of Dr. King was to come and bring peace in every community. If you leave this place the same as you came in, if this day ends and you are no different, then it doesn't matter. Do you understand me? Yo, do you understand me?
Yes.
You must change this world. It is up to you. You can't sit back and say, well, it's up to other people to do what's right. To hell with that. It is up to you, and you cannot hide in anonymity. Every single one of you. Now, I know this. Every person in here, your teachers, every human being in here has got stuff you're dealing with. You ain't the Lone Ranger. Everybody got stuff they dealing with. I remember when I was in school, I thought particularly when I was a freshman, I thought, the seniors were cool and they didn't have no problems. No, that ain't right. Everybody got problems in here. Every single one of you. You must harness and carry those problems and issues and help other people. That's the legacy of Dr. King. It is not some figment dream of yesterday. It is right here, right now in you. If you choose to allow that dream to go unrealized, it's your fault. When I stand here, I don't see a mass of young faces. I see individual hope. I see you. I see what you can be. I see what you need to be. And I also see what our world needs. You can do one of two things. Be in it for yourself, or be in it for this world. That, my young friends, is your choice. Long time ago, I went to jail. Not too long ago, I went to jail. I got arrested again. Old man. 70 years old, I was arrested again. Because there's injustice and injustice and wrong and immorality. I will never give up. I invite you to the struggle. Amen?
Amen.
Yo, amen? 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 And amen. I'm good. Gotta go.